Hello, we are back and recording another video again. It has been a minute, so we will be talking about the F2 mid-season, but before we do so, I feel like I have to talk a little bit about why I was away. I'm not going to go into any of the details, but I just feel like I need to include this mental health message because it is very important for a lot of people. And I love this community, and it doesn't matter who you are, if it's someone I've met with, someone I've interacted with before. We don't want to be losing people to mental health reasons. So I feel like I just need to include this message a little bit. So, absolutely, this is a place where I want people to feel comfortable talking to me for any reason. Yes, we talk about racing and stuff like that, but especially if you're with me over on Twitch streaming or anything like that, we don't have to only talk about racing. We can talk about whatever's going on with people. But yeah, so if people need to talk or vent or discuss anything, feel free to please do so. But if emergency assistance is needed, please seek help. It is available. I've got this message next to me. You are loved. You're important. You're valued very much. And I really wanted to include the suicide helplines over there because I've been fortunate. I've never had to call it before, but have been close. But fortunately, not everyone knows at the same time of all the resources available. And I don't need to trauma dump here, but yeah, this was just really important for me to include. I needed to let people know, kind of at the same time, why I've been away, why I've been taking a little bit of a break, and I don't know when I'll be back, kind of thing. I'm going to be posting a couple videos very quickly back to back right now, but yeah, it's been a lot harder to find motivation lately. That's all I'll say. But yeah, we're going to be talking about some Formula 2. So obviously some of the guys we're going to be discussing are over to my, well, I guess it's my left, but your right, depending on how we're viewing it all. But yeah, we're going to talk about some of these guys, as always. I've kind of got my little preset here. I've got the squares. I've got the smaller ones to indicate where preseason I had predicted them to be as far as standings go. And I'm just going to start this off very early. I was dead wrong. This has been the most crazy season of Formula 2 I have ever seen. And I mean that in a good way. Do I think it's the most competitive season? No. No, not at all. But there's been very level competition, which is great fun to watch. I can't deny that. Do I think that top level talent is there? I don't right now. I'll be honest, I don't see that top level right now. Granted, some of the drivers who I think have been excelling are rookies. So, let's get into the rankings. We're going to start, we're going to kind of give the explanation. Yep, we've got the boxes we're looking at. Here's what we're going to be looking at. As always, we look at both qualifying, feature racing, for race pace, we measure that during the sprint races since there's no tire changes, no real strategy taking effect. We do look at points. We combine all of the race pace, and as always, if there is something like a DNF, if the driver's not at fault, I am not penalizing them. I'm looking at someone for example, I believe it was Amory Cordial in Imola, lost his tire in a pit stop and DNF'd the race. Absolutely, by no degree is he getting any sort of penalization in my system. I'm simply counting that position as null and void. And we do have other factors to try and calculate back to get to expected averages between all of the drivers that are very similar. So we have ways to account for that. But on the other side of things, if a driver does cause a collision that leads to their own DNF, again, looking at Imola, because that was one of the more recent races I actually watched. Looking at Isaac Hadjar there, and the collision that he caused in lap 1. So he got a penalty. He got penalized for that. Meanwhile, drivers who was it? Stanek, Hauger, Fittipaldi, who are just kind of victims with nowhere to go, no penalties for them. But some like Hajar in that situation gets a penalty. All right, so let's start at the bottom. We're going to do our first few drivers in groupings, and then we're going to go individual. So we're going to start with the bottom three. I've put Taylor Barnard, Roman Stanek, and Rafael Villagomez. I think these are like the only three where it just happened to ever so coincidentally matched where they were in the standings at the time. I have to preempt this actually. All of these stats are pre-Silverstone. I know Silverstone has passed, but I'm not taking any of those numbers into effect because that's not when the midseason was. The midseason was right after Austria, so that is when I'm counting all of this information as of. Silverstone is not taken into effect here. So yes, Taylor Barnard in P20, Roman Stanek in P21, Rafael Villagomez in P22. So each Barnard and Stanek happened to actually manage to get a sprint win, and that's their one highlight of the season, almost for each of them, basically. Yeah, it's been a very competitive year. I believe when I last checked it, I think 18 drivers have had podiums this season. I think 12 or 13 drivers have had wins. So there's going to be, I don't know if it's a lot of or not a lot of parity. I can't remember. English was never my favorite subject in school. I always preferred something like math, which is one of the reasons why I got into the sport. How I was able to come up with some of these calculations. But yeah, the field is very tight in my opinion this year. So there's going to be a lot of drivers at the bottom who are kind of shocking, and there might be some drivers who are up high that are kind of shocking. I know I myself was surprised by some of these positions, but mathematically that is where they ended up. So yeah, these drivers kind of were at the bottom. I don't feel like I really need to take too much time into them. Yeah, Stanek hasn't really had much going well for him other than that one bit in Australia. I don't even remember anything about Villagomez this year. And Taylor Barnard, yeah, he had that win at Monaco. That was great for him. And yeah, that was about it though. Next grouping of drivers, we got Miata, Juan Manuel Correa, and Amory Cordial. Miata, I'm a little bit disappointed in him this season, especially coming over from like Super Formula and everything like that. I thought he would do a little bit better. I wasn't expecting the world of him, like I put him at P12 as my expected finish, but this is definitely a little bit of a disappointment for him. P18, Juan Manuel Correa, it's basically right on par of what I expected for him. To me, if anything, he's doing like I don't want to say better than expected because my standings I predicted him to be P16, so he's actually doing worse, but the fact that he's got a podium kind of shocked me in all reality. Yeah, so he's doing almost arguably better than expected. And then Amory Cordial, he's actually had a couple solid performances. I gotta give credit where credit is due, but he's still just not consistent enough. That is what I'll say. He has his good moments, but he's just absolutely not consistent. And if he's at the back, he's way at the back. He's crashing. He's causing his own retirements. And yeah, it's just not good for him. Now we're going to start looking at individual performances. In P16, I've put Zach O'Sullivan. Yes, he was P11 in the standings at this time. He's also got a win. He's also got, well, that one podium to him. But this has been a very, very disappointing season for him. And, well, I think more or less for the team that he's on in general. I think this has been a tough transition to the new vehicles. Yeah, everyone was expecting a lot more from him. P15, I put Richard Verschoor. I know he's racing for Trident, and Trident has never been good in Formula 2, but I think even he's been disappointed. And granted, who knows what could have happened in Saudi if he didn't have that one disqualification. Maybe he'd be a little bit up higher. I don't really know. We can't really dwell on the what-ifs. We can only dwell on what has happened. So, yeah, he's been all right. He's been all right, in my opinion, but racing for a poor team. In P14, I've got Joshua Dirksen. This has been actually a shock for me. I can't remember what level he jumped from because I don't think he did Formula 3. I think he switched over like right from GB3 or something like that. So I was not expecting decent results at all. But you know what? He's done all right for himself. He's done all right for himself. He's managed to get on the podium once. He's been all right, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing if he can continue to prove me wrong. And P13, I've put Ollie Behrman. I put an asterisk next to his pole because I think if he hadn't raced in Formula 1 in Jeddah, I think he'd be much higher in the standings. Like, significantly higher, and that probably alone would boost him up in my power rankings as well. But with all of the other factors even taking into effect, he's not been good enough. Simply put, I don't think he was deserving of this promotion to Formula 1 yet. I don't. I just don't. I know preseason, I put him in the Haas seat myself. But I think there's too much being put off of just that one race in Jeddah, and that's just simply not good enough. You can't just have one good race. I'm a big fan of Nick DeVries, but he's the perfect example of that situation. You can't go off of one good race and bring someone in, because it's not going to turn out well. I don't think it's going to turn out well at this point. I've got a lot of hype for Ollie Behrman. I know Ferrari does as well. Right now, I just don't see it. He needs to really turn around his season to prove me wrong now at this point. Preseason, yeah, I put him finishing second in the standings. It's been a disaster of a year for him. And that's even with getting an F1 seat. P12, I put Pepe Marti. He's P12 in the standings. This is actually one of the few that match. He's done a little bit better than expected. He's reacted well to, I believe he's been dropped by Red Bull at this point, although it looks like he might be wearing Red Bull overalls there. I'm not actually 100% sure. I thought he got dropped by them, but he's done better than expected. Again, we're giving credit where credit's due. He's managed to get 3 podiums. He's done all right for himself. Not fantastic, not very consistent, but he's done all right for himself. And P11, I put Enzo Fittipaldi. He looked fantastic at the Saudi race, but outside of that, he hasn't really done much else. Yeah, he got, I think, were both of his podiums at that weekend? I don't even know. At this point, but I was just looking at all of them recently, and that was really the only thing that stood out to me. The rest of the year, he's been pretty bad. I get why Red Bull has dropped him. I was shocked to see he was still wearing a Red Bull racing helmet. I think that's a little bit hopeful of him, maybe. I don't know really why he's doing that. But yeah, I think this is his time done in Formula 2. At this point, he's probably going to be looking over to like IMSA or IndyCar next season, I'd have to imagine. P10, I put Victor Martins. This is the guy preseason I thought would be potentially winning the championship. ART had just won it last year. I believe he was Rookie of the Year last year. I was expecting a lot out of Victor Martins, but it's been very, very, very disappointing. And preseason, I would have put him in contention potentially for an Alpine seat. I don't think that's really on the board anymore. Yeah. P9, I put Kush Miney. I think he was all right kind of at the start, but he's fallen away. He's definitely fallen away a bit. But I think he's always just been that good mid-level driver as long as he's been in F2. I know I've been probably one of his biggest haters, simply because I don't like the way he came from F3 to F2. I still don't like it. I think it was a bad call on his part. But you know what? He's been all right. I gotta give him that. He's been fairly decent. Granted, he's also racing for, in my opinion, a very good team. And then in P8, I got Jack Crawford. Yeah, I know he's P6 in the standings as of this point, but I've dropped him down to P8. He just hasn't been there always when he needs to be. I think there's been a ton of that this season for almost every driver, bar maybe like 2 or 3, who it'll be pretty obvious, those 3 drivers that I've got at the top. Basically, the main reason why they are there is consistency. That's really about it. I think my guy in P4 doesn't even have a podium, but he's just been performing well on a regular basis, and not all of these drivers have done that every weekend. So that's why Crawford is here, and we're going to move up to P7. In P7, we got Zane Maloney. I know this is probably a shocking one. I think the main reason that dropped him down is I think he had one or two DNFs that he could have avoided. I know off the top of my head, I'm thinking Monaco, where he rear-ended someone, and then just he did the Lance Stroll. He did the Lance Stroll in China thing, where it's like, oh, everyone backed up, and he just rear-ended the guy in front of him. And then, yes, he did get rear-ended in return, but his race, he had already ruined his own race at that point, and I know he got at least a penalization for that in my system. In P6, we got Kimi Antonelli. Okay, so this is the guy. Okay, I have him P6. In my head, I had him P4, but I'm remembering my own information wrong. I'm remembering this all wrong. I don't have any of this information scripted at all. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. But yeah, Kimi Antonelli. Like I mentioned, the rundown, it doesn't have any podiums for him because this is pre-Silverstone. But you know what? He's been pretty decent. He's been pretty decent. He's not been exceptional like I know some are expecting of him. So I don't think he's been that exceptional level, but you know what? He's having a good rookie season. I was probably one of the biggest doubters. I still do think it was too early for him maybe to jump to F2, but you know what? He's made good on it. He hasn't made great on it. So that's why I still think he should have done maybe 1 year in F3. He could have been maybe leading that one. I don't know. No one knows. It's what-if situations, but he's done pretty good. And P5, I got Franco Colapinto. He's had himself a pretty decent performance. He's P5 in the standings. He's P5 in my rankings. He's got a win, 3 podiums. He's been basically regularly around the points at this point. So, and that's in this system, that's fairly good. P4, I've got Dennis Hauger. He hasn't had as much bad luck as he has in the past. He's actually kind of stepped on his own feet a little bit. Looking at Spain, where he kind of took himself out of the race, as well as who else did he hit? I think he hit Marty out of that race. I'm not 100% too sure. I know it was one of the Red Bull liveried cars. Which actually, that just reminded me I answered my own question, that Marty has not been dropped by Red Bull. I think he's one of the guys that recently signed to them, but I didn't understand why. But yeah, Dennis Hauger, I still think he's a very good driver at this point. His path to F1 is basically done. He's doing the Jehan Daruvula path of, he's probably going to get a seat somewhere next season. He's just trying to line up the best opportunity for it. It just won't be in F1. Yeah. Then we move on now to our top 3. In P3, I put Bortoleto. I think he has been actually fantastic. I was a little hesitant on him because, yes, did he dominate F3? Absolutely. I think he was also on an excellent team, and I didn't expect him to come close to winning that championship last year, but he did, and he's proving me wrong in Formula 2. He's been excellent to the point where once we got the color changes, considering he's racing for McLaren, do I expect like a 1 and up promotion? No, not at all. Do I expect him to compete for the championship? I don't think so. But I think next year he's going to be a favorite. Absolutely, he's going to be a favorite for that championship next year. And then in P2, I've got Isaac Hadjar. He's P2 in the standings at this point. He's been fairly consistent. He's had his little blips such as Imola, but you know what? He's been very fast, very consistent, very good. His attitude sucks, plain and simple. Like, I can see him getting a promotion to like AlphaTauri or something like that next season. AlphaTauri, I'm still calling them by the wrong name. Oh well, I refuse to call them Visa, Cash App, whatever. So yeah, I won't be surprised if he goes to a team like AlphaTauri next season, simply because, you know what? He's fast. But he needs to improve his PR. He definitely needs to improve his PR. I think it was Monaco where he lost out due to bad luck and safety car timing. But holy, was that... The blow-up he had over the radio, I think he lost a lot of respect from a lot of people, including myself a little bit. He's a fantastic driver, but he needs to clean up on how he speaks to people, because that wasn't good. Plain and simple, that wasn't good. He should have dealt with that back in the garage, not over the radio. Oh, I went the wrong way. And then in P1, of course, I've got Paul Aaron. I think Mercedes is really regretting dropping him at this point. Do I think he would have been a contender for a Mercedes seat next season? No, I don't think he would have been. I think they would have maybe considered him an option, though, for like a team like Williams, if he was still with them. But now at this point, I think Paul Aaron's probably going to be in Formula E next season, considering he's already filled in there. That feels like it's going to be something that happens, because if he wins this championship, he's not coming back to F2, and he's not signed with any F1 teams right now, but I don't know if any of them are really even looking at him, which is kind of shocking in itself. Yeah. So those are my full rankings. Of course, we're going to dive into this a little bit more, such as the next slide. We're going to categorize them into, I believe it's one of 5 categories. So, yep, we've got my championship contenders, the drivers who have been just absolutely amazing, which is Aaron, Hadjar, and Bortoleto. The drivers who I think have been having actually great seasons, where they could potentially get picked up by a team if they had the right resources with them, such as Dennis Hauger. A lot of drivers who I put in my midfield category as of right now, including Antonelli. I don't think he's ready for a call-up yet. I think he's been good, but it would absolutely be too soon to call him up. And same goes for Ollie Behrman. I think he needs a 3rd season in Formula 2. It's a mistake right now. I think he's very good. He definitely has a lot of potential, but he needs to prove himself some more. And then we have our drivers in the yellow category, where I put them as they need to improve next year or leave if they're entering their 3rd+ season, especially if they've been regularly down in that category. So at this point, Correa, you're done. Cordeal, you're done. Stanek, you're done. Villagomez, I can't remember if he was in F2 last year or not. I think he was. So regardless, he is done. Miata and Barnard, I kind of want to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, especially Barnard. He jumped up too early. I think that was a bad move by him. I think he needs to definitely just improve next year. And Miata, I'm tempted to be like, just, you're done as well, simply because he came from the Super Formula background. He has racing experience in highly competitive cars as well. And what was it? Did he come over also from like experience like in WEC as well? So yeah, he's a more experienced driver than many of those he's going against, and just isn't getting results. But yeah. So next we're gonna go on to my drivers who have been exceeding expectations the most, and those who have been most disappointing. So my drivers that are absolutely exceeding expectations: Paul Aaron, Isaac Hadjar, Bortoleto. My 3 in the top 3. I would have never put them there. They've been great. Then Joshua Dirksen and Kimi Antonelli. So Dirksen, I was expecting him to be parading around the back of the field, and that simply has not happened. He's had himself a couple decent drives. Nothing fantastic, absolutely, but he's had himself a couple decent drives. And then Antonelli. You know what? Like I said, he's had a good rookie season, and that's actually more than I expected of him. I was very worried he was going to be like mediocre, if not bad, considering he jumped levels. But you know what? He's done fairly good for himself. And then, of course, there's the opposite side. Drivers who have been very, very, very disappointing. I put Behrman, O'Sullivan, Martins. Those were 3 drivers who I think were wanting to be competing for a championship this year. And they're just not even close. It's, I think, out of the question at this point. I don't know if they're actually mathematically eliminated, but it's out of the question for a championship as of this point for any of those drivers. I already talked about Miata a little bit, and I also talked about Verschoor as well. I think Verschoor is a very good driver. I just think Trident's a very disappointing team, so I can't really fault him too much, but this is still definitely disappointing even for him. And yeah, that kind of wraps up my standings. So Let me know what you think. Who would you put higher? Who would you put lower? Where am I way wrong about? And yeah, let me know what you think. Thank you very much for everyone for watching. Give me a follow on Twitch if you aren't already, as well as TikTok too. We have done a little bit of streaming over there. I actually need to get back into that some more. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Take care.